10 years ago, the son my parents adopted, my brother Caleb, committed arson and assault. But under my parents' protection, all the evidence was cleverly shifted onto me. The victim's family threw a bucket of gasoline on me, screaming they'd take me down with them. My parents, even my own sister, pleaded with me. Caleb didn't mean it. He was hurt in the fire, too. He can't go to prison. Just take the blame for him. I refused. I fought back, trying over and over to explain the truth. The next day, however, they all stood against me, becoming the witnesses who testified to my guilt. I was branded an arsonist and dragged away by the police. And my fiancée, Isabella Croft, the heiress to the Croft Corporation, was the architect of it all. To make sure I couldn't escape, she conspired with my family, personally ensuring I was sent to the high-security Blackwater Penitentiary, cutting off any chance of escape. Before they put me on the boat, she made me a promise. Leo, just endure it for 10 years. When you get out, I'll marry you. 10 years passed in a flash. Leo Vance, you're out. Be a better man. Look forward, don't look back. I took my tattered old personal effects from a guard and boarded the fishing boat sent to pick me up, a shabby vessel rented from a local fisherman. It was clearly the Vance family's way of keeping my release low profile. When we reached the Portman City Marina, I immediately spotted the familiar Maybach. The window rolled down slowly, revealing my fiancée, Isabella's face, so calm it was impossible to read. You suffered these past few years, she said, her tone flat, devoid of any emotion. I'll keep my promise. We'll get married. I didn't hold her gaze, just gave a quiet and got into the car. In the rearview mirror, I saw what I looked like now. Gaunt and haggard, with an ugly, glaring scar across my face that made me look menacing. Isabella noticed my wretched state. She was about to say something when her phone rang, interrupting her. The caller ID read Eleanor Vance. Seeing my mother's name, I felt no ripple of emotion, no anticipation. Leo, I'm so sorry. Something's happened to Caleb. My mother's voice was strained with anxiety. You know, the fire 10 years ago left him with severe psychological trauma. He has schizophrenia. The news of your return today triggered him. He's having hallucinations. Your father and sister are with him at the hospital, and I have to get over there right now. Watching Isabella hurriedly prepare to start the car, I knew this was coming. I saved her the trouble and opened the door, getting out. Isabella paused, her hand on the ignition. She looked at me, standing on the side of the road, and added, I'll have a driver take you to the house. 10 years in Blackwater Penitentiary. 10 long, agonizing years. I was caged, tormented, and every one of those thousands of miserable days and nights was a constant reminder. They didn't love me. 26 years ago, my mother and I got separated during a trip to a mountain resort. I wasn't found until I was 12. By then, all their care and attention were focused on their adopted son, Caleb. They barely spared me a glance. That included Isabella. 10 years ago, for Caleb's sake, they let me take the fall, stealing my entire life. I'd spent more than a decade begging for their love, like a stray dog. Now, I was finally done with the fantasies. I no longer had any desire to marry Isabella Croft. 2 hours later, I arrived at the Vance estate. It was the end of the year, and the house felt empty, with only the housekeeper and 2 maids on duty. The looks they gave me were filled with disgust and contempt. To them, I wasn't the young master they didn't accept. I was just the arsonist who brought shame to the Vance family. Sir, what happened 10 years ago was a big deal. Mr. and Mrs. Vance specifically instructed that you're not to go out for the time being. The family can't afford the embarrassment, the housekeeper said, his face a blank mask. We have a lot going on today, so I won't be able to prepare a room for you. Please make yourself at home. I glanced at the 2 maids lounging on the sofa, scrolling through their phones. I understood perfectly and didn't say a word. I get it, I replied faintly. The storage room in the attic. I had lived there for over a decade, and no one had ever cleaned it. This time would be no different. I pushed open the long unopened door, and a thick cloud of dust hit me, making me cough. But I was too exhausted to care if the room was clean. I collapsed onto the bed. As night fell, I vaguely heard my sister Chloe's voice outside the door. Why did you let Leo come back? It's all his fault. Caleb is triggered again. If anything else happens to Caleb, I swear I'll send him right back to prison and make sure he never gets out again. My mother sighed heavily, but said nothing. Then my father spoke. He's still a Vance, Chloe. He served his time. We can't just throw him out on the street. What if someone saw him and it got in the news? That would be an even bigger trigger for Caleb. Then what do you suggest we do? The hospital is cold and lonely. Caleb can't stay there forever. Chloe snapped, her tone full of impatience. She seemed to have completely forgotten that I was also her brother, her own flesh and blood. Then, my mother finally spoke. When Caleb comes home, just have Leo stay in his room. Tell him not to come out and be an eyesore. Even though I had no expectations left for them, hearing my own mother call me an eyesore still felt like a needle piercing my heart. A sharp, stinging pain. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a call from Professor Du Bois from the Portman University Art Department. My child, my art boy. It's been 10 years to the day since we lost contact. How are you doing? Hearing the voice of Professor Du Bois, who had always been like a mother to me, the tears I had held back for a decade finally burst forth. I had met her at a charity event for a local youth center. The kind old woman had been a great admirer of my artwork, always affectionately calling me her art boy and treating me like her own son. Before I was sent away for Caleb, Professor Du Bois had offered me a lifeline, an invitation to be her assistant in Paris to continue developing my artistic talent. But before I could even make a decision, they sent me to that isolated island prison for 10 long years. I never imagined that she hadn't believed the news reports back then. She had been worried about me all this time, sending me a message the very first day I was out. In her heart, I was still her cherished child. Without a moment's hesitation, I replied to her message, asking if the offer to go to Paris still stood. My child, thank God you returned safely, she replied almost instantly. The doors of art are always open for you. Give me 1 month. I will come to get you myself. I'm going to bring my artistic genius back to the stage where he belongs. The tears I'd stored for a decade felt endless. 1 month. I closed my eyes and began the silent countdown. 1 more month of endurance, and I could leave this loveless cage forever. In 1 month, I would be reborn. The next morning, I was jolted from a night of restless sleep by the sound of cheerful laughter. Pushing through a hangover-like headache, I opened my door. The living room was a scene of perfect domestic bliss. Caleb was back. He sat in the center of the sofa, looking sharp in a tailored white shirt, his face delicate and pale, like a prince holding court. My parents, my sister, and even my fiancée, Isabella, were all gathered around him as if he were the sun. My sister, Chloe, brought out a beautifully decorated cake. "Happy birthday, little brother," she said softly. "I took a baking class this year just for you. This is the first one I've made. I hope you like it." A chorus of voices rang out. "Happy birthday, Caleb." "Wow. Thank you, Chloe. Thanks, Mom and Dad. And thank you, Isabella." Caleb's face was glowing with happiness, his voice laced with a playful, coddled tone. "Did everyone get me surprise presents, too?" "Of course we did. Our Caleb is so clever," my mother praised, handing him a beautifully wrapped gift box. My father and sister followed, presenting their own carefully chosen gifts. "Caleb, I had a friend bid on this for you at an auction in Paris. It's an early work by Professor Du Bois. I hope you like it," Isabella said, gently placing her gift in his hands. Caleb's eyes shone with undisguised joy. Just then, he noticed me standing off to the side. "Leo," he said, feigning an apologetic tone. "I wasn't feeling well yesterday, so I couldn't come pick you up. You're not mad at me, are you?" Isabella's gaze followed his to me. "He's your brother, Leo. Why would you be mad at him?" she said gently. "Come on, Leo. Come celebrate Caleb's birthday with us." Seeing the smug look on Caleb's face, I felt a wave of exhaustion and didn't know what to say. No manners at all. After all these years, he's still the same. "Can't even say a word on his brother's birthday," my father snorted, his voice filled with displeasure. He seemed to have forgotten that today was my birthday, too. The whole reason they adopted Caleb was because he was born on the same day as me. "It's okay, Dad." Caleb bit his lip, putting on a show of being understanding. "I don't blame Leo. I know he's had a hard time." "Leo," Caleb said, looking at me with a playful glint in his eye, his words dripping with provocation. "Could you give me a birthday present, too? As a welcome home present for me, getting out of the hospital." "Okay. I want Isabella," he said, making no attempt to hide his vile intentions. "Can you give her to me, Leo? Please." The words were disgusting, but no one else in the room seemed to think so. No one objected. They were all just waiting for my answer. "No." Faced with such a shameless demand, I couldn't muster a friendly tone. Caleb's smile froze on his face before melting into a wounded expression. "Leo, I was just kidding. If I made you angry, it's all my fault. I am sorry." My mother immediately rushed to comfort him. "Don't be sad, Caleb. You know Leo has always been petty. Your mommy's only precious son." My father, my sister, and even Isabella quickly crowded around to console Caleb. Isabella turned to me, her voice sharp with blame. "Your brother was just making a joke. Can't you be more considerate? Do you want to trigger him again?" "Leo, you're being so thoughtless." "Only precious son." The words were like thorns driving deep into my heart. Looking at this warm and harmonious family, I gave a bitter smile. There was no room left for sadness. I haven't seen the sun properly in 10 years. I want to go for a walk, I said, turning to leave. My mother suddenly called out, "Wear a mask. Don't let anyone recognize you." I forced a bitter smile and obediently put on a mask. Just over a month. Just over a month until I would see Professor Du Bois. Just over a month until I could truly be reborn. I could endure it. I wouldn't let anything go wrong before then. After leaving the Vance estate, I took the subway to the strip of cheap eats near University City. With no diploma and a criminal record, the only work I could find was a temporary gig at a burger joint. The place was greasy, and the work was monotonous and exhausting. But at least it came with one meal a day, which kept me from starving. At the Vance house, I never had a peaceful meal. After they found me at 12, they had given me a grand total of $500. When I needed money for tuition and living expenses, they shot back with venom. "You were spoiled rotten as a child. A dog that can never be fed enough." I never asked them for money again. All these years, I had survived on work-study programs and odd jobs. Before I was of legal age, I bounced between illegal workshops, sometimes not even getting the wages I was owed. As long as I had food to eat, I didn't care about the meager pay. I only wanted to survive. Once, Isabella had been the only light in my life. She descended into my world like a goddess, protecting me, saving me from school bullies, and taking me out to eat all kinds of food. The way she looked at me was with a tenderness and care I had never seen from anyone else. I depended on her deeply, trusted her unconditionally. So much so that 11 years ago, when I learned she was gravely ill, I didn't hesitate to give her half of my liver to save her. A liver can regenerate, but the pain from the surgery and the long scar across my abdomen could never be erased. But what did that matter? As long as I could save her. However, from the moment she personally sent me to Blackwater Penitentiary and conspired with my family to frame me, everything between us was over. 15 more days, and I could finally break free from all of this. I would never have to see her again, and no one could ever hurt me again. The quiet, busy routine didn't last long. I saw on the news that the daughter of the Croft family and the son of the Vance family were about to be engaged. I still found it hard to believe. The Crofts and the Vances were old family friends. Isabella and I had been engaged since childhood. Even during the years I was missing, the Crofts had actively helped my parents put out ads to find me. After I was found, they came to our house to reaffirm the engagement. Over the years, Isabella had sworn her love to me so many times. I really knew I shouldn't believe her anymore. That night, I returned to the Vance estate to find the whole family sitting in the living room. My mother spoke first, her tone as casual as if she were discussing something trivial. "Leo, you're back. Good. Let's all sit down and discuss your brother's engagement." My father immediately chimed in. Caleb was deeply traumatized by the fire. His mental state has been unstable. He only seems to get a little better when Isabella is around. So, we've decided to let Caleb have this engagement. You don't have any objections, do you? Was Isabella a toy in their hands? Something to be passed around at will. An overwhelming sense of absurdity washed over me, and I couldn't help but laugh coldly to myself. From the day I was forced to give my room to Caleb, it seemed everything, including the stray cat I had rescued, even a full-ride scholarship, could be casually given his name. Even when Caleb didn't care for any of it. To this day, I still clearly remember bringing that poor little cat home, and the image of its broken body after Caleb was done with it. I clenched my fists, remaining silent for a moment before turning to Isabella. "You agree?" I asked, my voice calm. Isabella's eyes darted away, unable to meet my gaze. "It's the only way to help Caleb get better right now," she whispered. "Leo, you can understand, right? Since you've already made up your minds, why bother asking me?" I replied, my face expressionless, and turned to head back to the attic I could barely call a room. But my sister suddenly blocked my path. "Leo Vance," she glared at me, her face contorted with rage. "How can you be so cold and selfish? My brother is sick. Besides, you're just a convict now. What makes you think you're worthy of Isabella?" "Leo," Isabella gently took my hand, her voice pleading. "I don't think you're unworthy of me. I just want to stay by Caleb's side for a while. Once his condition stabilizes, we'll get married, okay?" Seeing me remain silent, she continued. "After all, he was the one who gave his liver to save me. I can't betray his kindness. Besides, he's your brother." Isabella's words were like a heavy club striking my heart. For a moment, I felt a rush of blood to my head, and the room spun. It was my liver. Why was it now Caleb's good deed? "Isabella, do you believe that I was the one who saved you?" "Leo Vance." My father exploded with rage, pointing a finger at my nose. "You are despicable. You'd lie about something everyone knows to be true? How desperate are you to compete with your brother? I'm telling you, you'll never be as good as him. I ignored my father's roaring and just kept my eyes fixed on Isabella. When I saw the disappointment and disbelief in her eyes, I had my answer. I didn't offer any more defense. I didn't hear what Caleb was muttering on the side. I just silently turned and went back to my small, dark attic. It didn't matter. In 3 days, Professor Du Bois would be here to get me. In her heart, I would always be her proudest child. The night before Isabella and Caleb's wedding, which was also the eve of my departure for Paris, some old classmates insisted on throwing a reunion party. The burger joint happened to be closed that day, and before I could find a place to hide, a large group of them showed up at the Vance estate. Leo Vance? You're here too. The crowd of well-dressed young men and women surrounded the soon-to-be married couple. When they turned and saw me, their voices dripped with mockery. Weren't you always attached to Isabella, like a puppy? Did you know all along she was going to be your sister-in-law? So you came to suck up early? A sharp voice called out. As it happens, Isabella just lost a game of truth or dare. How about she gives you a kiss? As a souvenir, another voice chimed in, followed by a wave of laughter. Every piercing word was like a needle in my heart. I listened numbly, my only prayer being that Isabella wouldn't humiliate me with her words. Isabella, please, don't. Caleb tugged at her sleeve, his voice a pathetic plea, like a child afraid of losing his favorite toy. Let the happy couple kiss instead. Ha ha. The crowd grew rowdier, the atmosphere more chaotic. Across the room, Isabella's eyes met mine. I held her gaze, my face a mask of indifference, before silently turning to leave. Amid the boisterous cheers and applause, I knew they had kissed. I silently thanked her. At least she hadn't humiliated me in public. That day, the Vance estate was unusually lively. Even though I stayed in the attic, the sounds of laughter managed to seep through the cracks in the door, reaching my ears with perfect clarity. Caleb and Isabella are a match made in heaven. Tell me about it. Remember when Caleb ran into those thugs on the street, and Isabella stood up to protect him? Yeah, and then for her birthday, Caleb painted a portrait of her that won an international award. Oh, you might not know this, but Caleb even gave her part of his liver to save her life. What were they talking about? When I was first brought back to the Vance family, I was severely malnourished and weak, and I was often bullied by local troublemakers. The one who stood up for me was Isabella. The one who painted her portrait and won an award was me. The one who gave her his liver to save her was also me. Why had it all become a shared memory between Caleb and Isabella? Leo, let's run away together. Leo, thank you for the portrait you painted for me. I'm so happy. Leo, I'll protect you forever. Don't be afraid. Leo, I love you. Now. The 17-year-old Isabella, the one who had sworn to protect me, was gone forever. She had become something more disgusting than the thugs who used to beat me up. I couldn't forgive her, just as I could never forget the 17-year-old girl I had once loved so deeply. That night, brilliant fireworks lit up the Portman city sky, set off by Isabella to celebrate her engagement to Caleb. I received a text message from her. Leo, the one who saved me was Caleb, but the one I love will always be you. Wait for me, okay? I silently turned off my phone. I knew that tomorrow, it would all be over. I went back to the attic and changed into my only set of decent clothes, my suit from high school graduation. I didn't want to look too pathetic when Professor Du Bois arrived. I sat down at the desk and slowly opened a journal. The yellowed pages documented the faint hope I once held for this family and its final, utter destruction. Mom and Dad finally brought me home. I have a sister and a brother now. I'm not an orphan anymore. They gave me this journal. I've decided to write in it every day to record my new life. There isn't a spare room ready yet. My brother had nowhere to stay after school, so Mom asked me to live in the attic for now and give him my room. My brother is so cute. I'm happy to give him my room. Tuition is due again, but the boss for my winter break job still hasn't paid me. I'm afraid of getting yelled at, so I have to desperately look for other work. The last entry in the journal was dated April 2014, the month before I was sent to prison. On that page, a single, lonely sentence was written, "They never loved me." I sighed, picked up a pen, and prepared to write a final farewell on the last page of this journal. Dad, Mom, I'm leaving. You can consider me dead. I just can't understand. If you didn't love me, why did you go to so much trouble to find me, only to bring me back to this cold house? Do parents really exist who don't love their own child? In these 10 years, was there ever a day, even a single moment, when you worried about me? If that's the case, why did you have me in the first place? Chloe, my sister, the debit card you gave me, I never used it. It's right here next to this journal. You've probably forgotten, but I have to say it. I'm your brother too. But none of that matters now. I'm leaving. None of this will have anything to do with me anymore. Finally, I wrote a few lines for Isabella. Isabella, I can't wait any longer. I am sorry. I can't forgive you either. Just like you told me when we were 17. Never forgive those who hurt you, even if that person is you. I wish you and Caleb happiness. We will never meet again. After writing this, I placed my medical reports from prison and the photographs on the desk. The report clearly documented the partial state of my liver upon my incarceration. The photo showed the shocking, centipede-like scar snaking across my abdomen. Just as I finished, I got the call from Professor Du Bois. Without a shred of sentimentality, I left the Vance estate and walked, without looking back, toward my new life. The Vance estate was decorated with lanterns and banners, filled with a festive air. The next morning, the deafening sound of celebratory cannons echoed through the sky. Guests arrived in a constant stream to offer their congratulations, but among them, there were no relatives or close friends of Isabella. In her mind, this wasn't a real wedding. She and Caleb hadn't even officially registered to be married, so she hadn't notified any of her own friends or family. The Vance family, however, was acting with extraordinary excitement, as if this were a world-class event. Mr. and Mrs. Vance, dressed in elaborate custom-made attire, were busy adjusting Caleb's tie, their faces beaming with joy. Chloe scanned the room, but didn't see Leo. Her brow furrowed slightly. Dad, Mom, Leo isn't here yet. He's always been in love with Isabella. He's probably hiding somewhere because he's upset, she guessed. That boy is still so unpresentable, her mother said, also frowning with a hint of displeasure. Housekeeper, go get him. We can't have outsiders gossiping that the Vance family has no manners. The housekeeper nodded respectfully, but Chloe spoke up. Housekeeper, which room is Leo in? I'll go with you. The attic, the housekeeper replied succinctly. The attic, Mr. and Mrs. Vance's eyes widened at his answer, a flicker of undeniable guilt crossing their faces. All these years, they had been completely oblivious. Isn't that the storage room for junk? Why would Leo have been living there all this time? The mother asked, her voice filled with surprise and confusion. When Master Leo was first brought back, none of the other rooms were ready. The original plan was for him to stay in the young master's room, but then you and Mr. Vance felt sorry for the young master, so Master Leo was temporarily settled in the attic. The housekeeper explained, his eyes lowered slightly. That child has such a difficult personality. I don't know who he gets it from, the mother muttered. I was just a little neglectful, and he never said a word to us. It makes it seem like we were deliberately abusing him. It's okay, Mom. The attic is fine. Caleb, who had been silent until now, suddenly spoke up. At least you gave my brother a roof over his head. Hearing this, everyone felt a bit uneasy, but since it was a special day, they didn't say anything more, though an indescribable, strange feeling settled in their hearts. Fine, Chloe, you go get your brother, the father instructed. Housekeeper, find 2 people right now and get a guest room cleaned up for Master Leo. With a heavy heart, Chloe walked to the attic door. She pushed open the old wooden door and was hit by a thick wave of dust that made her cough. The attic had no air conditioning. It was bone-chillingly cold in the winter and suffocatingly hot in the summer, like an isolated icebox or a steam room. An old, discarded iron-frame single bed that Chloe had used as a child, a dilapidated desk, a lamp with a yellowed shade, an open journal, the debit card she had given Leo a few days ago, and a simple drawing board picked up from who knows where. This was the sum of Leo's possessions in this home. Chloe stared at the scene, and beyond her shock, a wave of indescribable sorrow and guilt washed over her. This was the Vance estate, the home of his blood relatives. How could he have lived in such squalor? The Leo in her memory was supposed to be spoiled, arrogant, a spendthrift with a malicious heart. Where did the monthly allowance the family send him go? Chloe suddenly remembered what Leo had said at the burger joint a few days ago, that he had never received any money from the family. At the time, she thought he was just being greedy and pretending to be poor. But now Leo was gone. Where could he have gone? Her gaze fell on the desk, where Leo's journal and some papers were laid out. She walked over and skimmed through them, and was once again struck speechless with shock. She realized she needed to investigate this. If it was really Caleb who saved Isabella, then why did Leo have a scar on his abdomen? Why did his prison medical report show a partial liver? And his behavior over the years seemed completely at odds with the vicious image she had of him. The more she thought, the more horrified she became. But she decided to keep her doubts to herself until she had uncovered the truth. Chloe called her assistant, handed him the journal and papers, and instructed him to investigate everything thoroughly. Where's Leo? At the wedding reception, Mr. Vance asked Chloe, who had returned alone, with a deep frown. "He's not in his room. Maybe he went out," Chloe answered simply. "Oomph. What an unpresentable child," her mother said with displeasure. "Don't worry about him. He'll come back when he's hungry." Listening to her parents' conversation, Isabella felt a sudden, inexplicable unease. She had a sinking feeling that she might never see Leo again. Caleb, sensing Isabella's distraction, felt a surge of jealousy. "Leo has always been in love with you, Isabella," he said with forced casualness. "He probably just can't face reality right now, so he ran off to hide. We didn't raise him right. Please excuse his behavior, Miss Croft." Mr. Vance added. Hearing these words, a fire of irritation ignited within Isabella. Didn't he say he would come back after this was all over? She thought angrily. Aren't I doing this for his brother? How can Leo be so ungrateful? When Leo had claimed he was the one who saved her, Isabella had only felt disappointment, not anger. But this time, the strong premonition that she might never see him again made her genuinely furious. Isabella took out her phone and sent Leo a series of texts. "Where are you? Stop this, okay? I'm doing this to help your brother. Be careful, or I really might not come back to you." But all her messages were met with silence. Chloe witnessed the scene, but unlike usual, she remained silent instead of blindly defending Caleb. She desperately needed to know the truth. "Leo is an adult. He'll be fine." "Isabella, you're marrying me today." Caleb's words were like sharp needles, pricking at everyone present and making them uncomfortable. But given the occasion, no one spoke up to object. Isabella looked at the young face before her, which bore a slight resemblance to Leo's, and a complex wave of emotions churned within her. "Caleb," she said, her voice sharp with annoyance, "you should know that the man I have always loved is your brother. I have already agreed to marry you and stay by your side for now to spare your feelings. Don't you care at all about your own brother's safety?" With that, Isabella turned and walked straight out the door. She was going to find Leo, leaving behind a crowd of stunned guests and the Vance family. Fire. There's a fire again. Suddenly, Caleb let out a piercing scream. He grabbed his parents' hands, shouting over and over, "Save me. Mom, Dad, save me. Please, save me." Mr. and Mrs. Vance instinctively rushed to shield him, but in a moment of distraction, Caleb broke free from their grasp and darted up to the second-floor balcony. "If Isabella doesn't come back, I'll jump from here. I'll set myself on fire," he screamed hysterically from the edge of the balcony. Before the family could react, Caleb leaped. But it was clearly a calculated move. He knew that a fall from that height wouldn't cause serious injury. At the hospital, the doctor emerged from the emergency room. "Mr. and Mrs. Vance, please don't worry. Your son is not in any serious danger. He can go home after his wounds are treated. The boy donated a liver before, and now he has schizophrenia. We're very worried about his physical condition. Even though the doctor says he's fine, we're still concerned it might worsen his old issues," the mother said, her voice fraught with worry. "We also performed the additional tests you requested, but the results—" "Are you sure there wasn't a mistake somewhere?" the doctor said, looking puzzled. "There is no scar on your son's abdomen from a liver donation surgery, nor are there any signs of liver regeneration. As for his mental state—" The doctor paused, then continued. "Based on the examination, it's possible the previous hospital misdiagnosed him. Your son's mental condition is perfectly normal." Mr. and Mrs. Vance were stunned into silence. If Caleb wasn't the one who saved Isabella, then who was? Almost simultaneously, they both thought of Leo. After a moment of silence, the father turned to his wife. "Let's not tell anyone about this for now." The mother nodded silently. She looked into the emergency room where her son's wounds were being treated, her heart a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. This son, whom they had doted on for over 20 years, suddenly felt like a complete stranger. In the CEO's office of the Vance Corporation, 3 hours had passed since Chloe returned to the company alone. As the eldest daughter, it wasn't difficult for her to investigate matters. An hour ago, her assistant had printed and organized all the findings and placed them on her desk. In addition to medical reports and records similar to the ones Leo had left behind, there were 2 pieces of security footage. One video recorded the entire process of Leo signing the liver donation consent form and being wheeled into the operating room. The other video documented scenes of Leo being beaten and abused by other inmates in prison. When she saw the moment a knife slashed across Leo's cheek, Chloe could no longer control her emotions. She covered her mouth, and tears streamed down her face. So that's where the horrifying scar on his face came from. That was her brother, her own brother. No matter how much she had rejected him as a child, No matter how badly he had supposedly treated Caleb, he was still the brother she shared a mother with. How could Leo have endured such inhuman treatment? And who would dare to bully a son of the Vance family like that? Weren't Isabella and their parents supposed to have taken care of everything? And why was Leo living a life of near starvation? Didn't the family send him money and supplies every month? Question after question swirled in Chloe's mind. She couldn't make sense of it, and she was afraid to dig deeper. She called her assistant back in. "Keep digging," she ordered, her voice firm. "I need to know exactly who dared to assault a Vance, and who was behind the orders to withhold his money." "Yes, Miss Vance." The assistant nodded respectfully and quickly left to carry out her orders. After he left, Chloe slumped weakly into her chair. A damaged liver, a disfigured face, a body covered in bruises, that ugly scar on his abdomen. Chloe's mind kept flashing back to the attic she had seen that morning. The squalid, shabby attic where Leo had lived for more than a decade. After a long while, she slowly picked up the old journal from her desk. She remembered it was a gift from their parents when Leo was first brought back home. Perhaps this journal also held some unknown truths, just like the thick stack of medical reports and records in front of her. With a trembling hand, she opened the first page. "Mom and Dad brought me home. I have a sister and a brother now. I'm not an orphan anymore. They gave me this journal. I will write in it every day to record my new life. I really like my sister and brother. I want to play with them, but they don't seem to like me very much. Maybe it's just my imagination." 2 hours later, Chloe finally reached the last page of the journal. When she saw the words Leo had left for her, she could no longer remain calm. Tears welled up in her eyes. "Chloe's sister. The card you gave me, I never used it. It's right here next to this journal. You've probably forgotten, but I have to say it. I'm your brother too. But none of that matters now. I'm leaving here. None of this will have anything to do with me anymore. Sister." She whispered the word, tears blurring her vision. How could she have forgotten that Leo was her brother? What had she been doing all these years? If she had only harbored doubts and suspicions before, now, after reading the journal, she was certain. Everything pointed to an unbelievable truth. Brother. The thought that she had never once properly called Leo brother made Chloe want to slap herself. She only ever had one brother. That was Leo. How could she have forgotten something so important? Just then, a knock came at the door. It was her assistant, holding another thick stack of files. These documents detailed the masterminds behind the abuse and the withholding of Leo's money. All the evidence, both witnesses and material proof, pointed to one shocking name: Caleb. A chill slithered up Chloe's spine like a venomous snake. For over 20 years, Caleb had hidden himself so perfectly, his scheming so meticulous, it was terrifying. She knew she had to handle the situation with Isabella carefully. She understood Isabella's feelings for Leo, and telling her the truth rashly might make her lose control. But she had to tell their parents immediately. The Vance family could not be kept in the dark any longer, and Leo could not continue to carry a burden that wasn't his. Just as Chloe reached for her phone, it rang. It was her mother. "Chloe, you have to come home and see your brother. I think he's been triggered again. He won't stop crying and screaming, and no one can calm him down," her mother pleaded, her voice choked with sobs. "I'm on my way," Chloe said, hanging up quickly. She stood up and rushed back to the estate. Too many questions weighed on her like stones, making it hard to breathe. No matter what, she had to confront Caleb and demand answers. She couldn't accept that the brother she had adored for over 20 years could be capable of such monstrous acts. The Vance estate was in ruins. The living room was a scene of chaos. Anything that could be shattered had been smashed to pieces by Caleb. Shards littered the floor, a perfect reflection of the family's fractured state. Her mother's eyes were red and swollen from crying, her face etched with exhaustion and despair. Chloe walked into the room, but instead of offering her usual words of comfort, she silently pulled the journal from her bag. "Dad, Mom, I want you to read what Leo left behind," she said, her voice calm but laced with a deep hidden sorrow. "Brother?" At the word, both Mr. and Mrs. Vance flinched. They immediately thought of the name that had been haunting them since they saw Caleb's medical report. Leo? In all these years, when had Chloe ever called her own brother by such an affectionate term? They looked up toward the stairs leading to the attic, the place where Leo had lived for more than a decade, and a wave of indescribable bitterness washed over them. Silently, they took the journal from Chloe's hands and began to read, word for word. Chloe's lips were pressed into a thin line, her gaze as sharp as a sword fixed on Caleb, who was still rampaging through the room. Watching his frantic state, she waited a long time before finally speaking, her voice trembling almost imperceptibly. "Caleb, The one who gave his liver to save Isabella. It wasn't you, is it? Her words struck Caleb like a bolt of lightning. He froze mid-motion, the expression on his face solidifying. Seeing his reaction, Chloe's heart felt as if it were being squeezed by a giant hand, and a metallic taste rose in her throat. An instinctive reaction is always the most honest. She remembered the line from the journal. You've probably forgotten, but I'm your brother, too. And a searing pain shot through her. Caleb, Chloe's voice cracked. What else have you lied to us about? Why did you intercept your brother's allowance? Why did you have people torture him in prison? Why did you lie and say you were the one who saved Isabella? Chloe's questions grew harsher and heavier with each sentence, draining the color from Caleb's already pale face. Chloe, what? What are you talking about? He stammered, his eyes filled with panic. By now, Mr. and Mrs. Vance had finished reading the journal. Chloe, what on earth are you talking about? We don't understand a word, her father asked, his brow furrowed in confusion. Chloe didn't speak. She just pulled out the medical reports from her bag, along with a thumb drive containing the security footage. If Caleb's medical report had only planted a seed of doubt, then seeing Leo's report and the two horrifying videos caused their world to crumble. The mother couldn't withstand the shock and collapsed in a faint. That monster! The father's eyes were bloodshot, his body trembling. He no longer had the capacity to deal with the still raving Caleb. He just sighed again and again, as if lamenting his own foolishness and blindness over the past 20 years. Just then, Isabella, who had been silent, walked in. She took in the chaotic scene, took a deep breath, and said in a calm, firm voice, I think, as Leo's former fiancé, I have a right to know the truth about all of this. Isabella had appeared in the living room at some point, her face ashen, like the sky before a storm. Behind her stood several well-built bodyguards, one of whom had a particularly menacing face. I learned that someone was abusing Leo in prison, she said coldly, her eyes sweeping over everyone in the room. I've brought the person responsible with me. Now, what are you all talking about? I think I have a complete right to know the truth. Seeing the man behind Isabella and hearing her words, Caleb's face turned deathly white. His lips trembled as he tried to defend himself. Isabella, what truth? What are you all talking about? Caleb, even now, you won't tell us the truth? Chloe felt her patience snap. How many things have you framed Leo for over the years? How many crimes did you make him take the blame for? Do you want me to list them all one by one? As Chloe's words fell, Caleb stumbled backward, nearly falling. His eyes were red, but his face still held its usual pathetic, innocent expression. Chloe, you've always loved me the most, haven't you? He pleaded, trying to win her sympathy. Chloe let out an icy laugh. And have you forgotten that I only have one real brother? The words real brother stabbed at Caleb like a knife. His eyes widened in disbelief as he stared at Chloe's face. He started screaming, his body growing agitated, looking as if he was about to rush to the balcony and repeat his earlier drama. But this time, no one moved to stop him. They had all seen through his act. They knew a fall from that height wasn't fatal. He was just using it to get attention and sympathy. The father picked up Caleb's medical report from the table and fixed him with a cold stare. Are you done? He asked, his voice stern. I just want to know the truth. Caleb stopped moving. He looked at his father with tear-filled eyes, mumbling, Dad. Don't call me Dad. His father cut him off, his voice filled with disappointment and fury. Answer my questions. You don't have schizophrenia, do you? The one who gave his liver to save her wasn't you. It was your brother, wasn't it? For the last decade, you've been slandering your brother and having people torture him in prison, haven't you? Faced with his father's questions, Caleb covered his ears and shook his head frantically, trying to deny everything, but the disappointment in his father's eyes only deepened. Just then, Isabella, who had been watching coldly from the side, finally spoke. Chloe, she said, her voice like ice, give me Leo's medical reports. Chloe's hand trembled slightly as she handed the files to Isabella. Caleb slumped to the floor, completely defeated. A critical condition notice, CT scans, and scattered pathology photos. Isabella flipped through them one by one. The further she went, the darker her face became, and the fire of rage in her heart burned hotter. Arms, abdomen, back, thighs. Every visible inch of skin was covered in wounds, deep and shallow, horrifying to behold. These were the scars from the beatings and abuse Leo had endured in prison. Thinking of the hideous scar she had seen on Leo's face when she picked him up from prison a month ago, Isabella's heart surged with a fierce anger and pain. In an instant, she strode over to the collapsed Caleb, her eyes blazing with a sinister hatred. Tell me, she gritted out, her voice so cold it was chilling. What did you do? What did you do to Leo? Isabella completely lost her composure. Her eyes were bloodshot, and her heart felt as if it had been ripped into a million pieces, the pain so intense she could barely breathe. Caleb didn't answer anyone. He turned his head to look at his mother, who was just waking up on the sofa. "Mom, it hurts," he whimpered, seeking her protection. But his mother turned her face away, unable to look at him, her eyes filled with disappointment and grief. His father pounded his own chest in anguish. "How could you be so cruel? Did you ever think that what you did would make us live with regret and pain for the rest of our lives?" Caleb just looked at his father and mumbled, "Dad, didn't you say you only loved me?" "You monster," his father roared, his voice thick with anger and sorrow. "Ha." Seeing there was no way out, Caleb suddenly burst into laughter, a sound filled with despair and madness. "I just wanted Leo to die. That's all. Caleb. Thorn." Isabella's voice sounded as if it were being squeezed from the depths of her soul, filled with a rage and hatred so profound she wanted to tear him apart. Just then, the father's voice cut through her fury. "Isabella," he said heavily, "my dear, I will give you an explanation. But before that, Leo left some words for you." Isabella numbly took the journal from him, her hands trembling as she slowly turned to the last page. Leo's neat handwriting filled her vision. "Isabella, I can't wait any longer. I am sorry. I can't forgive you either. Just like you told me when we were 17, never forgive those who hurt you, even if that person is you. I wish you and Caleb happiness. We will never meet again." So, he wasn't just being difficult. He wasn't throwing a childish tantrum. He had truly left forever. And here she was, arrogantly thinking they still had a future, that they could go back to the way things were. Isabella clutched the journal to her chest. She tried to remember what she had promised Leo when they were 17. Leo, the 17-year-old Isabella, would never forgive the Isabella who hurt you now. "You did the right thing, Leo. Don't forgive her." And just then, under the watchful eyes of everyone present, the woman who was once Portman City's most celebrated golden girl, the proud, confident, radiant heiress to the Croft fortune, revealed an expression of utter heartbreak. Tears, like pearls from a broken string, streamed from her eyes, tracing paths down her perfect cheeks, crystal clear and filled with unbearable sorrow. "Isabella, Caleb started to say, try to explain. Isabella didn't want to hear his voice anymore. Her heart was filled with rage and disappointment, her tone turning impossibly cold. "You had everything. Everyone favored you. Even after Leo came back, everyone still put you first. What more could you possibly want? What about you? You love him." Caleb shrieked, grasping at what he thought was a lifeline. "Isabella, what did you do after Leo came back?" he demanded. "Don't forget, the one I was engaged to from the very beginning was always Leo." Isabella shot back, her brow furrowed. "I always treated you like a little brother. The person I love is Leo, but when did I ever give you less affection? It was because you were Leo's brother that I cared for you even more." "Ha ha ha." Caleb's laughter grew more frantic, filled with mockery and bitterness. "Because you loved him, you cared for me more? What a ridiculous reason. And what did you do, my dear Isabella?" he questioned, enunciating every word. "You sent him to prison, you kissed me, and you set off a city's worth of fireworks for me. You say you love him?" he repeated, his voice dripping with contempt. Slap. The father, his eyes red, struck Caleb across the face. It was the first time in over 20 years he had ever laid a hand on him. "Mom, Dad, Chloe, what about you? Leo isn't dead." Caleb clutched his face, screaming hysterically. "That's right. I'm the one who cut off his money. I'm the one who framed him. I'm the one who paid people to torture him in prison." He admitted to everything. "But how innocent are you?" he raged. "Didn't you all choose to look the other way, to tacitly approve? Didn't you help me forge the evidence to send him away? He's missing now. Isn't that better? Just pretend I'm your only real son, your only real brother. Isn't that what you always wanted? Didn't you always say I was your only precious son? Isn't that what you really believe?" Slap. Another sharp crack echoed through the room. This time it was his mother. "Shut up." Her lips trembled as she pointed at Caleb, her voice filled with rage and finality. "We only have one biological son, and his name is Leo. From this day forward, you are no longer a son of the Vance family. What we owe Leo, we will try to repay, and what you owe him, you will repay too." Outside the Vance estate, police sirens suddenly pierced the night. A massive press conference was held, and the scandal of the Vance family's adopted son framing their biological son instantly became the top headline on every news outlet. Mr. and Mrs. Vance were condemned and vilified online. Poor judges of character, Fools, abusers. The labels stuck to them, bringing them unbearable shame. But in their hearts, they knew their sins ran far deeper than that. Meanwhile, Professor Du Bois and I were on a flight to Paris. During a layover, I happened to catch a glimpse of the news report. I was slightly surprised, but my heart was strangely calm, without a single ripple. "My child, are you planning to forgive them?" Professor Du Bois asked softly, respecting whatever decision I made. I shook my head. Right now, all I wanted was to cherish this hard-won family bond with her. Blood isn't the only thing that ties a family together. "Professor," I said, looking at her earnestly, "you once told me that an artistic genius will eventually stand on the stage that belongs to him." The professor smiled, relieved, and pulled me into a hug. "May God bless you, my child," she whispered. "Ladies and gentlemen, we will be arriving at Paris Charles de Gaulle Airport in approximately 5 minutes. The ground temperature is 20 degrees Celsius. The aircraft is now beginning its descent." A gentle voice announced over the cabin speakers. I pushed the nightmarish memories, along with the irrelevant press conference, to the back of my mind. Through the window, the sky was a pure, endless blue, and my mood brightened with it. Paris. I was here to start a new life. "Mama." A clear, childish voice called out. A little girl ran and threw herself into Professor Du Bois's arms. The professor caught her securely, then turned and pointed at me. "Sophie, this is Mr. Zhao." The girl was small, with healthy, sun-kissed skin and a sprinkle of cute freckles across her face. She looked to be about 12, the same age I was when I first arrived at the Vance household. "Hello, I'm Alex Zhao. You must be Sophie," I said with a smile, watching the heartwarming scene. "Yes, Uncle Alex." Sophie's smile grew even wider. "Mama said a super talented artist who can also cook delicious Chinese food was coming." "This is awesome." Sophie looked me over curiously and then suddenly declared, "Wow, you're so cool." I paused, instinctively touching the scar on my face. "So cool. Sophie likes you a lot," she continued, her voice full of innocent admiration. I couldn't help but laugh. It had been a long time since I'd felt such pure, simple kindness. I reached out and gently ruffled her hair. "Sophie is very pretty, too. I like you, too," I replied with a smile. "How about I make you some Chinese food?" "Yay!" Sophie cheered with delight. I had come to Paris as an immigrant, and during the process, I was able to update my name. My new identification would show no record of my previous one. All my official documents now read Alex Zhao. The past was completely and utterly erased. Besides the professor and her family, no one would ever know the connection between Alex Zhao and Leo Vance. Everything was just beginning. My future was full of hope and light. For the next few years, Professor Du Bois helped me enroll in professional courses at the Portman University of the Arts, and the name Alex Zhao gradually became known to more and more people. I was finally standing on my own stage, beginning to shine. Back in Portman City, it was the dead of winter. Whenever Isabella closed her eyes, the gaunt, frail image of Leo and the shocking scars on his body would appear in her mind. In her dreams, Leo's face was a mask of cold indifference, sometimes even deep hatred. Isabella's heart ached so much she could hardly breathe. She would reach out her hand in vain, wanting to touch him, to explain, to apologize. "I know the truth now. I know everything. I was wrong. I really know I was wrong," she would murmur over and over in her sleep. But Leo remained unmoved, the bleeding wounds on his body answering for him, silently accusing her of her crimes. The scene would suddenly shift back to when they were 17, under the shade of a sycamore tree. Sunlight filtered through the dense leaves, casting dappled shadows on the ground. A gentle breeze carried a fresh scent through the air. "Leo, no matter what anyone says, I will always be on your side. I love you, Leo. I will spend my entire life protecting you. I'll never let you get hurt again." Isabella would jolt awake from a dream, her face already streaked with tears. Outside, it was still the dead of night. Just then, the phone on her nightstand rang. It was her assistant, Ms. Croft, the younger Vance's son. "He's gone insane in prison," the assistant said urgently. "Trying to escape justice by feigning madness?" Isabella pressed her temples. She had no trust left for Caleb. "We have an official medical report this time." And Ms. Vance had already arranged for people to keep a close eye on him, the assistant added. After hanging up, Isabella's thoughts drifted back to their youth. Back then, she had truly wanted to protect Leo. For that goal, she had fought to make herself stronger and stronger still. She had held so much love and tenderness for him. She couldn't bear for him to suffer even the slightest pain. Thinking of this, a bitter smile touched Isabella's lips. She knew Leo might never forgive her, But even so, she had to find him. She had to atone for her sins in any way she could. She looked up at the window. Tonight, a gentle snow was falling over Portman City. Inside the Vance villa, there was a deathly silence. Learning that the adopted son they had cherished most had truly gone mad, the mother's heart was torn apart. She knew it was all because of the truth her daughter had revealed. She couldn't describe her feelings, a mixture of pain, regret, and self-blame that brought her to the brink of collapse. How did it come to this? She asked herself. The Vance family had never mistreated Caleb, had they? They gave him endless affection and a privileged life. Wasn't that enough? So what if you raised me for 20 years? I'm still not your blood. Caleb's desperate words before being taken away by the police still echoed in her ears, tormenting her like a curse. All these years, the thing that had plagued Caleb was simply blood. Endless regret and pain gnawed at her soul. The same agony was tormenting her husband and Chloe. That's my son. My own son. I already failed him by losing him once. He must hate me. That's why he left. Why he doesn't want his mother anymore. The mother sobbed, her tears flowing uncontrollably. When he was born, all I ever wanted was for him to be healthy and happy, she recalled painfully. Why did I treat him like that? Why did we treat him like that? She questioned herself over and over, her voice filled with remorse. We don't deserve to be parents, she finally admitted, her eyes swollen from crying. Her husband smoked in silence, a tear tracing a path from the corner of his eye. He, too, was drowning in self-blame. After a long time, he finally spoke, his voice hoarse and heavy. Chloe and I have used every connection the family has to find him. We've notified all the other branches of the family. If they hear anything, they'll let us know immediately. We've already lost him once. His voice was filled with a deep fear. We absolutely cannot lose him a second time. He may never forgive us, he continued, his tone laced with helplessness and sorrow. But even so, we must atone. We must do everything we can to make up for the mistakes we've made. The next morning, the Vance family and Isabella went to the mental hospital together. They were still uneasy about Caleb's condition. His previous act had been far too convincing. When they saw him with their own eyes, tightly bound to a hospital bed with restraints, mumbling incoherently, a storm of complex emotions raged within each of them. If only they had discovered the truth sooner. If only they had cared for Leo more. If only. But regret is the most useless thing in the world. An hour later, they left the ward, holding a recording the police had given them. The audio clearly captured Caleb, shortly after arriving at the station, confessing to all the crimes he had committed against Leo over the years. Hearing it, they were all overcome with a heart-wrenching pain. They couldn't imagine how Leo had endured it all alone for so long. Chloe had only used a fraction of Caleb's own tactics against him, and he had completely shattered. So what about Leo? What incredible strength had sustained him through such immense suffering and torment? It hadn't snowed in Portman City for many years. Isabella held out her hand, and a cold snowflake landed in her palm, instantly melting into a drop of water. She looked up at the gray sky and whispered, Leo, I was wrong. Where are you now? Paris, the city of romance, became the starting point of my new life. Professor Dubois and her family warmly invited me to live with them. To outsiders, it seemed their family had gained a mature, stable older son, and Sophie had gained a doting older brother. The window in my room faced the beautiful Seine River. Every evening, the setting sun would cast a slanted glow, coating the river's surface in a sacred and serene gold, a beauty that was breathtaking. Alex, the professor said to me one day, they're still looking for you. They've been searching for 7 years now. It's okay, Professor, I replied calmly, shaking my head. They're looking for Leo Vance, not Alex Zhao. Ha ha, and Alex Zhao doesn't know them. She laughed heartily, then clapped me on the shoulder. Keep moving forward, Alex. Don't look back. Over the years, I threw myself into my studies and creative work. I not only completed all my coursework and earned my degree, but my artwork was also honored with an exhibition at the Louvre. I gradually became a minorly famous international artist. The Vance family had once dismissed me, claiming I had no artistic talent and that missing out on art school was no loss. Their scornful faces were once a recurring nightmare. But now, none of that mattered anymore. The Dubois family treated me as their own, and I had long come to see them as my family. The love I had once desperately begged for and never received now enveloped me completely, making me feel a warmth and happiness I had never known. I was truly no longer an orphan. I even had an adorable, innocent little sister. On my birthday this year, I stood before the mirror and studied my reflection. With the help of the Dubois family, The scar on my face had been professionally treated. While it couldn't be completely erased, it had faded to the point where it was barely noticeable unless you looked closely. However, the long scar on my abdomen, the one from saving Isabella's life, was still there, a hideous reminder of a painful past. I got my art supplies and carefully sketched the scar, using my brush to record the struggles of my past life. Then, I picked up Sophie's favorite purple paint and gently brushed it over the scar on the canvas. Miraculously, as the purple spread, the ugly scar began to disappear, replaced by a blooming iris, elegant and noble. Legend has it that the iris possesses powerful healing properties, allowing one to remember the beauty and strength of love. I am eternally grateful to Professor Du Bois, her husband, and the lovely Sophie. They opened their hearts and invited me to become a part of their family, allowing me to once again feel the warmth of a home and the power of love. After so many years, I finally remembered the true meaning of love. I walked into a tattoo parlor, looking at the reflection of the skinny, sallow boy who was once Leo Vance. Constantly begging for love, I said a silent goodbye. From now on, a beautiful iris would bloom on my abdomen, a companion that would witness my new, hopeful life. The following year, I returned to Portman City as a Chinese-American artist to hold a solo exhibition and was invited to give a lecture at the Portman Arts Institute. When I met the event coordinator, we both froze. It was Isabella. Though I had completely cut ties with my past over the years, trying to forget everything, seeing her again still sent a pang of indescribable pain through my heart. Mr. Zhao, this is the chairwoman of the Vance Corporation, Isabella Croft, my assistant introduced us. So it was true, 8 years, and she had gone from Junior Miss Croft to Ms. Croft. Leo, is that you? Isabella's eyes were filled with shock, which was quickly replaced by a storm of pain and complex emotions. Mr. Zhao, do you two know each other? My assistant asked, flustered. I gave her a small smile, then turned back to Isabella and extended my hand. You must have me mistaken for someone else. My surname is Zhao, Alex Zhao. It's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for overseeing this event, Ms. Croft, I said, my tone calm and distant. Isabella stared for a moment, then shook my hand, a look of disappointment on her face. I'm sorry, Mr. Zhao. I mistook you for someone else. Please forgive my rudeness, she said softly, but I could clearly see the deep-seated pain and disappointment in her eyes. After all, we had spent over a decade together. I knew her better than I knew myself. After some brief professional pleasantries, I was taken to a villa where I would be staying. After dinner, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find Isabella standing there. I moved to close the door, but she jammed her hand in the way, stopping me. Ms. Croft, this is highly inappropriate. If you don't remove your hand, I will call the police, I said coldly, my voice a clear warning. Or are you planning to use your old tricks and have me sent back to prison again? I deliberately used the word prison to provoke her. The usually composed Isabella broke down at the word. Tears streamed down her face. Now, I know it's you. I really know it's you, Leo. She sobbed. Leo, I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. I know the truth about everything now. She continued, her voice thick with regret. I looked coldly at the woman, crying like a child before me, feeling no pity. She could never again overlap with the girl who made promises to me under the cherry blossom tree. I am Alex Zhao. Leo Vance is dead, I said, my voice like ice, each word a dagger. Weren't you and the Vance family the ones who killed him? I truly didn't want to see her again. I was even starting to regret coming to Portman City. I am sorry, Leo. I know I wronged you. I don't expect you to forgive me, Isabella cried. Just let me do something to atone, please, she begged. Listening to her, my head throbbed with an overwhelming sense of weariness. You don't need to apologize again. You already did that this afternoon when you mistook me for someone else. I cut her off coldly. How do you plan to atone? Give me my liver back? Or perhaps you'd like to spend 10 years in prison. I continued, my voice dripping with ice. Okay. Hearing my words, Isabella's face went deathly pale, but she agreed without hesitation. Before I could react, she pulled a sharp fruit knife from her coat and plunged it into her own abdomen. The sound of the blade piercing flesh was sickeningly clear. I was stunned. Are you crazy? I yelled, catching her as she swayed and quickly wresting the knife from her hand, throwing it aside. But a long gash was already carved in her stomach, blood pouring out. Warm blood splattered on our faces. For some reason, I was suddenly reminded of the cherry blossom season all those years ago. We were lying under the trees, pink petals drifting down onto our faces, gentle and beautiful. It was as if time had folded in on itself, Only now the falling petals were Isabella's crimson blood, stinging my eyes. "My dear son, are you okay?" At that moment, my parents and sister, who had been waiting nearby, rushed over, screaming in panic when they saw the scene. "Call 911. Isabella's hurt." I ignored my parents' term of endearment and shouted at them. The ambulance arrived quickly and rushed Isabella to the hospital. My sister went with the police to give a statement, leaving me alone to face the parents I hadn't seen in years. After everyone else had left, my parents suddenly dropped to their knees in front of me. I quickly stepped aside and reached out to help them up. "Mr. Vance, Mrs. Vance, you are my elders. This is inappropriate," I said, my voice distant. At my formal words, both of their bodies stiffened. They stood up immediately. "We're sorry, Leo," my father said, his eyes red and his voice choked with emotion. "It was thoughtless of us. We just wanted to apologize to our child, as ordinary parents," my mother added, her voice full of guilt and pain. I remained silent, just watching them. Seeing no response, my father took a deep breath. "Leo," he continued, his voice pleading, "if you're willing, you can have all the shares of the Vance Corporation." My mother pulled a property deed from her bag. "Leo, you wrote in your journal that you love the ocean. I bought this seaside villa especially for you." I pushed everything they offered back toward them, my face blank. "The room I live in now has a view of the beautiful Seine River. I prefer the Seine at sunset," I said flatly. "I don't need anything from the Vance Corporation. I already have a wonderful family that treats me very well. I don't need Mr. and Mrs. Vance to worry about me." My tone was full of distance and rejection, thinking of the countless times I had begged for love from the couple standing before me, only to receive humiliation and indifference. A wave of grief and sorrow surged from the bottom of my heart, and tears finally fell. "You humiliated me countless times," I said, my voice breaking. "You ignored me, disbelieved me, and even let Caleb torture me at will. In high school, I read Shakespeare. I read King Lear." I continued, my voice trembling. "It's about a father who favors his two wicked daughters and banishes the one who truly loves him. Do you know how long I cried when I read that story? I don't believe his daughters were truly repentant at the end, and I don't believe Lear could ever truly forgive them. Just like I can't forgive you. Apologize? The only thing you can do is admit that Leo Vance is dead, that you killed him together." I looked at them, my voice full of finality and grief. "And then, you will disappear completely from my life." By the end, I was sobbing, tears blurring my vision. My parents just stood there, speechless for a long time, silent tears streaming down their own faces. "Mr. and Mrs. Vance must be tired. If there's nothing else, you should get some rest," I said, dismissing them, my voice cold and distant. My mother gave a sad smile and nodded. "We're fine. You should get some rest, too. Take care of yourself." She paused, then added, "Please give our regards to your family now." I gave a slight nod, then closed the door without hesitation, shutting them out of my world forever. My assistant informed me that Isabella's injuries were not life-threatening. I simply nodded to acknowledge the news. The art exhibition was set to open tomorrow, and with Isabella, the primary liaison, suddenly hospitalized, the event partner promised to assign a new one quickly. They said the new contact person would visit me today. Just then, the doorbell rang. It must be the new liaison. I opened the door and was hit with a headache, a wave of indescribable and complex emotions washing over me. I never would have expected that the new liaison standing outside would be my sister, Chloe. "Brother." Chloe was carrying several bags of fruit and supplements, calling out to me as she pushed her way into the house. I didn't expect the new liaison to be the vice president of Vance Corp. "What a pleasure," I said, forcing a slightly distant smile. My resentment and hatred for this sister weren't particularly deep. She had been sheltered her whole life, living in an ivory tower, possessing a certain naive kindness. But that didn't mean I could easily forgive her past neglect and indifference. "Brother, I'm sorry." Chloe's face was etched with apology and guilt. "Mom and Dad told me everything yesterday. They really want you to come home. But," she continued, her voice catching, "I know you have a good life now, and it's understandable that you don't want to forgive us." "I'm so sorry, brother. It was my fault. I'm so sorry," she repeated over and over. "Don't worry. Caleb is no longer part of the Vance family. He was sent to prison, and he later went mad." Chloe chattered on and on. I just nodded non-committally, accepting the fruit and supplements. We briefly discussed some work-related matters for the exhibition, and then I politely showed her out. 8 years, and she had become so talkative. The thought felt strange. In the following days, aside from occasionally seeing Chloe at work-related events, no one else from the Vance family, including Isabella, bother me again. However, a steady stream of various gifts continued to arrive at my villa. At first, I returned them one by one, but eventually I grew tired of dealing with it and just let my assistant handle them as she saw fit. As for Caleb, I visited him once at the mental hospital. He couldn't recognize me at all. He was strapped to the bed with restraints, his body covered in scars, new and old, deep and shallow, just like the torment I had endured in prison. I didn't stay long. The shocking wounds only brought back nightmarish memories. A month after returning to Paris, I received a message from my assistant. My painting, Cherry Blossoms and Blood, had been bought by an anonymous buyer for an extremely high price. I knew exactly who bought it. Only Isabella would do something like that. I returned the overpaid portion of the money to her, and then put the matter out of my mind. On a quiet Christmas Eve, I was happily decorating the Christmas tree with Professor Du Bois's family. A news report about the Vance Corporation suddenly came on the television. They were announcing a new satellite launch. It was a charitable project. On screen, my parents looked much older and more haggard than before. I glanced at the screen and saw that the new satellite had been named the Leo Star. Perhaps this was the best ending.